It's a big day at the New York Stock Exchange. Once Upon a Farm is set to go public and see its first trade debut down here on the floor of the NYSE. Joining me in studio above the trading floor, from the floor himself, is Michael Ranking, Senior Market Strategist at the NYSE. Michael, welcome.
Hi, morning.
Look, we got all the imagery behind us. Our viewers can see it on the wide shot here. We've got O-Farm signage. We got an O-Farm swag bag that we'll dig into throughout this segment.
Absolutely.
What does this IPO say about the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my wife is a huge Jennifer Garner fan, so she will definitely be tuning in for the opening bell this morning, right? And the market's been in a little bit of a need of kind of a shift in morale after a couple of rough days, and this is kind of some snacks making their way around the trading floor this morning is definitely kind of helping that cause, right? So this is another kind of high-profile IPO that we're seeing this morning. We've had a couple this week. We had Bob's Discount Furniture. We had Forge and Power. Right now we have Once Upon a Farm, right? And it's really exciting. We're seeing kind of demand within the market for continued IPOs, right? And we see kind of a very strong pipeline as we head out through the remainder of the year.
Okay, you mentioned the food, children's food, but it can be for adults as well. So let's take a look at what's in the swag bag. Tractor Wheels. This is organic toddler soft baked bar. That looks pretty good for our viewers.
Yep.
Tuning in at home. It does indeed, Michael. And these IPOs this week have pretty consistently been pricing within the marketed range. What does that say about the resiliency here of the market?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we've seen some pricing within, we've seen a couple pricing above as well, right? And they've generally traded pretty well, kind of in the secondary market, right? And we continue to see, kind of the investment community is looking for kind of new opportunities, kind of be involved in kind of innovation and kind of just around kind of the improving consumer sentiment. Kind of in consumer backdrop as well.
Yeah. Okay. So we have another snack here: organic soft baked bar, apple and oats, soft and chewy.
That's the one I'm looking for.
This one in particular says, as Jennifer Garner is going to be ringing the opening bell here at 9:30 a.m. Eastern this morning. You've been on the trading floor. You have a ton of experience. Michael, walk our viewers through why we see the broad market open at 9:30, but that it does take some time for a stock to actually open later on during its trading debut.
Absolutely. That's a fan favorite in the Ranking household for the kids. So what happens is, we have the equity markets open at 9:30, and then what happens in the IPO process is that you see kind of the investment banks, along with our DMM down on the trading floor, they look to kind of pair off kind of buyers and sellers in the secondary market, kind of for that new IPO. Typically, we like to open the stock, on about kind of somewhere close to 10% of the float. And you really just the idea is that we want to find the right price to open that stock, right, and make sure that kind of that volatility on the back end kind of is mitigated.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that is the unique offering that the New York Stock Exchange provides, right? An actual human opens this stock to ensure that it is as smooth as possible and weed out any signs of that volatility. I have one more thing to pull out of the swag bag. Can I do that while we're up here?
Oh, wow.
Once Upon a Farm with the avocado. That looks good, right? We're definitely getting in the spirit down here on the floor of the NYSE, and a big activation out there on Wall Street as well. Michael, in terms of what you can expect, the fanfare on the floor, give us a sense as to how that's going to build leading into the opening bell.
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna bring down the bell ringers, right, and then as they kind of move up to the podium, right, we're gonna definitely see kind of everybody get pretty excited down on the floor, right? And they're going to have that opportunity to kind of partake in that bell ringing, and then they'll be down here, later this morning, as we see that first trade in Once Upon a Farm.
You mentioned volatility earlier. Again, the way that these IPOs are pricing does show the resiliency of the market. We have seen the breadth of this rally broaden out, which by and large is a bull case, right? However, there has been a lot of volatility recently. So walk us through where you've seen that and what that means.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty interesting, right? We saw, kind of the MAC desk has come up with a couple words to describe what we've seen over the last week. Commodity is one of them, right? That's the combination of commodity volatility, and we saw a big pullback in some of the commodities complex, particularly in metals, which have been really, really strong over the last year, kind of in the aftermath of President Trump nominating Kevin Warsh to replace Fed Chair Powell, right? So that kind of triggered some volatility kind of across other asset classes. We've seen a lot, a big unwind in the crypto complex over the last week, right? As kind of there's some expectation that Warsh's policies potentially kind of to shrink the balance sheet, it kind of remove some liquidity from the market. And then we've seen some significant weakness within tech, particularly SaaS or software companies, right? And that's the SaaS apocalypse, right? And we've seen on the back of Anthropic releasing a new Claude model over the weekend, right? There's been a lot of concern about vibe coding, kind of the idea that companies are going to be able to do coding in-house and kind of displace these subscriber service kind of platforms, right? That's led to a lot of weakness within technology. Now this week, we also got earnings from the hyperscalers, Alphabet and Amazon. Now both put up really, really strong numbers, right? But the increase in CapEx has started to concern markets quite a bit. So we kind of came up with a Super Bowl stat here, right? So if you look at the CapEx for the hyperscalers, it's about $650 billion, right? That's the equivalent of what was it, over 80 million Super Bowl tickets and 2 million round-trip flights from New York to San Francisco to actually go watch that game.
Oh boy, I might need some snacks for a trip like that. Some O-Farm snacks, indeed, Michael. Anything else our viewers need to know? We would have gotten the jobs report this Friday, but that, of course, is not coming out now, as a matter of fact. But the economic data that we do see, what is that telling you? Yeah,
so we'll have a Workforce Wednesday next week when that jobs report does come out. So we've coined that term as well here on the Mac Desk. Yesterday, we did get some labor market data that was a little bit disappointing. We saw a tick up in initial claims. We saw the biggest jump in the Challenger job cuts number since 2009. And then we also saw the JOLTS jobs opening fall to about 6.5 million from 7 million. So we've seen a little bit of a disappointing round of labor market data this week, but we did see the ISM manufacturing numbers come in much better than expected earlier in the week, suggesting that we could potentially start to see a turn in economic activity, which is one of the key drivers and themes that people are looking for going into this year.
This is your favorite at-home snack?
Absolutely.
Okay, you're taking the organic soft bake bar with you. Apple and oat flavor, Michael.
Thank you very much. Kids will be excited.
Just in time for that opening bell. Michael Rankings, Senior Market Strategist here at the New York Stock Exchange. Michael, thanks as always.
Thanks for having me.